Okay. Hello, good evening, and welcome to this week's The Double 15 Minutes with me, Rupa, and my amazing, beautiful soul sister from across the pond, Sonjacharde. Welcome to the show, Sonia.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, and my absolute pleasure. Honestly, thank you for doing this. So, we're just going to I'm just going to say hello to everybody, and then I'm going to introduce you, but then I'd really like you to talk more about what you do because,
Okay.
just to let the audience know, Sonia is host of Chooch on the Looch. Chooch on I had this last time. I couldn't get my words out. So Sonjacharde is host of Chooch on the Loose podcast. She is also founder and CEO of the Soul Collective, which is a lifestyle brand for women of today, as I'd like to call it. Sonia is also a life coach, and she helps women heal from inner trauma and for them to become more empowered and, to gain more control of their lives. So, Sonia, let's go to you and let's talk about yourself. So, what was it that drew you into the arena that you're in now?
So I am a social worker by trade. And I had been doing that for about 13 years. I went and got a bachelor's in psychology and then a master's in social work. And in doing social work, I realized that it wasn't for me. Most social work jobs, you're not really able to make a difference because people that you're working with don't want to change, and that should be their right not to change. But instead, your performance is based on whether or not this person takes their meds or stays clean or able to get an apartment when they live on the street, which these are all impossible things. We can't control that with another person unless they really want to do that. And even if they want to, sometimes there's so many barriers that are stopping them from accomplishing this goal that it's just impossible, right? And so I realized that they were just too many big corporations trying to control people for their own benefit. My last job, I worked as a medical social worker at an insurance company. And so it was all about what can we do to keep this person out of the hospital, even if they're suicidal, even if they are having a heart attack. Like, let's keep the cost down so that the insurance company can make more money and make this really rich white guy richer. And so that nothing about that resonated with me. So I left doing that, started doing coaching, because most people that are in coaching tend to want to make changes, which is why they're paying me for a service. But then I transitioned. I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, and I did a few groups, and I realized that I like the groups a lot more. And the one-on-one coaching just doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't resonate with my spirit anymore. And I'm trying really hard not to do anything that doesn't resonate with my spirit, doesn't make me happy or feel good or feel useful. So I'm no longer going to be doing that. But I am currently working on my yoga teacher training. And so what I'd like to do down the line is combine my love of food with yoga, with groups for women who have struggles with confidence and trauma and things like that, to kind of combine it like a one-stop holistic shop for women who want to have a more communal support. Because I feel like that's what we need to get back to as women, is like loving each other communally and building relationships and nurturing each other how we used to do.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does, because it's giving everybody who's watching us, an opportunity to actually get to know you, to understand, sort of like why you left the corporate world, to move into a more holistic based world. Because, realistically, life coaching, empowering others is not always an easy route to take, and it's not a route that gives you a regular paycheck, and it is a real risk, isn't it, to leave the corporate role to move in. So I just want to say, before we continue further, we are live across Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So wherever you're watching us from, please drop some comments into the comment box so we know where you're watching from. So I can see we've got Claire Pendleton who has joined us. So thank you for joining us. A few others as well. So yeah, just drop some comments in. Any questions you've got for Sonia, please do ask them in the comment section. Now, Sonia, here's the question, because we were talking, I know, and thank you very much, because I was a guest on your podcast a little while ago, and we started a discussion about unconscious bias and racial inequality, and that being prevalent, not just in the USA, but across a lot of the world. More in some countries, less in others, but it is there. And how more and more people of, and I don't like using this word because I think we're all people of colour, but how more and more Black and brown people are actually, sort of like leaving the corporate world to set up on their own, to actually start providing services for for a wider audience and actually being more inclusive. So was that part of your decision? Because I know you were you were social working, and prior to that you were also doing some corporate work as well.
Yeah.
Was that part of your decision to leave all of that behind and set up on your own?
Sort of, but I don't think it was as conscious or conscious, whatever the word is, as I wasn't as conscious about it as it seems. I just really hated my job. So if you guys don't know, social workers make shit for money, right? So
yeah,
I think at that job, maybe the most I made was $65,000, which is it's really, really good money for social work. Most social workers with a master's degree make maximum $40,000 a year, no health insurance, no raises every year. And so I decided that as a single mom, I have a 13-year-old son. That wasn't working for me. So I sold my soul and went and worked for corporate social work for the Medicaid health insurance plan. And so for me, I also, I was not challenged. I could do all the 8-hour work in like 2 to 3 hours. And so I would just like keep my laptop open and watch TV and cook dinner at 1 p.m. and go to the lake because I lived right by the lake at that time. It was just like, this is stupid. I'm not being challenged. I never felt intelligent at that job because it was just so easy. And it felt like I was the rat in the little cart where I'm just like working, doing all these things, never making a difference. And there were all these weird rules. Like you weren't supposed to sit down and eat with your clients or like have any food with them or anything social. But for me, where they did it based on our neighborhoods, and I lived in Chicago at that time. I lived in a very diverse neighborhood. Like my neighbors in my building were from Thailand and Jamaica. Some were from Pakistan. So there were some that were from Bosnia. So that was my clientele. So those people from other countries besides America, they tend to want to feed you or give you tea or something when you come to their house. And for me, I saw it as, oh, that's so thoughtful. Of course I want to have tea with you. It's cold outside. Or of course I'd love to eat this mango you nicely cut up for me. Like I haven't eaten lunch yet. So for me, it's like, if the house is clean and you're offering me some food, I'm going to take it because one, I know that it's rude and people get offended if they offer you something and you don't take it. And two, it's like, who's going to know, right? Like I'm still doing my job. I'm still talking about your meds and your doctor's appointments and all those things while I'm eating these nuts or this lunch that you made me or whatever. And so that's when I realized that the corporate side of social work, although it paid more, even though it still isn't really enough money, it paid more, but there were all these limitations that stopped me from having relationships with people. And I just wasn't following any of the rules. Like I did whatever I wanted. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to sit here and have tea with you for an hour. I'm going to get my job done because it's only going to take me an hour anyway. So I'm just going to break all the rules. And I got in trouble a lot, blah, 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 whatever. And so I just realized it wasn't for me. And so I quit that job because I just couldn't take it anymore. And I had thoughts of like literally setting the building on fire. And so I was like, okay, this is probably a sign that this isn't the place for you. So let's just quit this, figure out what you're going to do next. And so at that time, I was already planning to relocate back to Georgia, where I had lived for 10 years. So I'll just kind of lined up, like, I'll quit this job. I'm moving here anyway. I'll figure it out when I get there. And so I started doing coaching maybe 3 months before I quit my job. And to be honest, it has been, coaching hadn't been very lucrative for me. I have never made less money than what I'm making now. But I also have never had less depressive episodes, less panic attacks. I've never felt more at peace with myself. I've never been a more patient mother, friend, lover, all those things. I've never been more happy. And I didn't realize how depressed I was until I wasn't. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is a thing that people actually feel, like this happiness thing. So I think that was a big part of it for me. And then I realized that, even if I have no money, of course we need money to survive, right? But even if I'm not having money like I used to be able to do things or buy things, like that's not where the happiness lies. And so for me, I never want to be in a place where I'm miserable and depressed again, but I'm able to like go on a road trip or buy expensive sheets or whatever like that. It doesn't matter anymore to me.
Yeah, well, because the thing is, the fact is, you could be sleeping in the most expensive bed sheets in the most beautiful of show homes, driving the most fancy car, but actually, if you don't have that inner peace and happiness, what use is any of those things?
Yeah.
So we've had a few more people joining us. We've got Nimisha Kakani's joined us, Sunita Joshi has joined us, Grace Kanu has joined us, and Jay Jordan, who was a guest a few weeks ago, who he runs an organization called Pegasus Ops, and amazing guy. He sort of like he rescues children that have been abducted parentally or otherwise. So Jay has actually put a comment saying, I think the corporate side of most industries takes away the levels of humanity and empathy from the services that are provided. Raj Patel has also joined us, and he said hi from Raj. So let's talk about this, because I know sort of like you and I, when we first connected, we were both talking about how we both felt really strangled by the corporate world, and even more so because, I think what Jay has said, I think corporate industries do take away the level of humanity and empathy, and there's an even sort of like a thicker, harder chains bound, to people of color, or like, the ethnic minorities, because we have even stricter rules put on us.
Yeah. And even knowing that we don't get paid the same thing that white women get paid. Like, I had a white coworker, loved her. She was my work wife, and I still talk to her regularly to this day. I knew that she got paid $8,000 more than me a year. And because we compared paychecks, and I had a degree from Emory. She just went to a regular state school. Her master's was in education, which is not related to anything we were doing. She had zero experience when she got that job. I had like 7 years experience, and she got paid more from me just coming in the door. Things like that, or like people telling me that my tattoos had to be covered up, or I couldn't wear bright clothing when I came into the office. But then you have Karen over here who has a bright pink mohawk. No, I'm wearing what the fuck I want, because what I wear and what I look like has nothing to do with my ability to do my job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So these are the discussions, because we had these discussions a few years ago on another show that I was doing, and we actually said, why should how you dress and your hair kind of make a difference? Now, I know one of the organizations I worked with in a previous industry, they did have an issue with women of color dyeing their hair. Now, I've got friends who are stunning, they're model-esque, and they've got the ability to be able to dye their hair the color they want. And as women of color, they were consistently told, you can't do that, you cannot have this color hair, that color hair, you cannot wear these clothes, that clothes. But I don't see how that actually impacts your ability to do a job or not do a job.
It doesn't. Yeah. And if you're covered, right? I mean, I'm assuming nobody's going to the office with their nipples hanging out, or wearing Daisy Duke shorts. Like, nobody's doing that, because nobody.
Well, here's the thing, though, Sonia. I've worked in industries where actually some of my Caucasian colleagues, we were taken away on conference to a country that was all about modesty, and a few of them were actually dressing very provocatively, and none of them were told a thing.
And inappropriate, and it shows how you're not able to dive into whatever culture you're a part of at the moment, because it's all about yourself, and it shouldn't be. There are ways to express yourself. There are ways to be professional, still be true to yourself, but still be covered if that is needed to be happened. And I wouldn't want to be around my clients in shorts and a tank top anyway.
No, and we wouldn't. And so we've got Bina Briggs who's joined us. So she's saying hello both. Lovely conversation going on here. So Bina is a HR consultant, very well established, was one of the first women of colour to actually be in a senior executive position in the 70s in the UK.
Oh,
women within those positions were unheard of. Women of color, ethnic minority women, even less so. So she's really sort of like pioneered the way for a lot of women to move into senior positions. But here's the thing: so we want to remove, we want to move away from the whole, sort of like them versus us, and we want to actually create a place of diversity and inclusion, of understanding. So with moving away from the corporate world and with going into what you do, how do you empower women to embrace A, who they are, and B, be absolutely who they are unapologetically.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think self-love, for me, I've had to learn that self-love is obviously love of yourself. You know, it seems so simple, but people honestly don't realize that sometimes. And so it's really about, like, this is the person that I am. I'm content with who I am. Doesn't mean I don't want to get better or become stronger or become healthier or become more patient or whatever your goal is, or make more money in the future. But it's all about loving yourself where you are. I love the fact that women tend to be supporting each other more now. And even for me, I tend to be more open-minded to white women, because I don't have a lot of white women friends. I think I have 3 that have been my friends for a long time, like over a decade. But I don't necessarily gravitate towards them, because I often feel like I have to always over-explain myself, and that's exhausting. I don't want to do things that make me exhausted if I have a choice, and I have a choice, so I don't do that. But I've learned that when you break down the racial barriers, a lot of times we have a lot more in common than we don't, right? Like, even if you're not going through the same thing that I'm going through as a Black woman, you're still a woman. And you're still going out into the world feeling scared for your safety, worrying about being passed over at work, worrying about if you're being a good parent, worrying about how to raise a child that understands the world, is going to be independent. If you're not a parent, like, figuring out who you are as a woman, that's such a difficult thing. Accepting your body, loving yourself, being a good family member. So we have so many similarities. So I think that starting with that internal love, really accepting yourself for who you are, and realizing, yeah, I might have some bias towards white women. You know, I might purposely not sit next to them at yoga, because I don't want to talk to them, because I don't feel like expressing myself or putting on a front. Checking my bias, and then realizing that, okay, if I have bias, she probably has some too. Maybe we can work through this together, not in me educating you, because that's exhausting, in us just talking as women to each other. And when you can really love yourself and accept your flaws, then you can be more accepting of other people's flaws, and really learn to love them, whether they're white or Black or Indian or Guatemalan or whatever. And so I think it's all about love, and kind of like realizing how to project that and share that with other people.
Yeah, no, 100%. So Raj has actually just said, nothing beats inner peace. You have to enjoy doing what you do in life. Hats off to you, Sonia and Rupa. Men can learn, men can learn from this too. Now, we're going to talk about the differences though, because I mean, we have spoken about racial bias and stereotyping. And I know, yes, this goes on, the USA and the UK. And I don't know whether, and it's sort of like those of you that are watching live from the UK, please share your comments. But I think whilst racial bias and racial discrimination absolutely 100% exists in the UK, and most people have actually experienced it, whether it is, white towards ethnic minority or ethnic minority to white, based on the bias that you've just spoken about. But we seem to have a bit more, although you wouldn't think it with all the, all the sort of like race riots going on at the moment, but we seem to have a little bit more tolerance in certain parts of the UK. Whereas maybe this is our ignorance in the UK towards the USA, but it just feels like the USA, you've got really tiny pockets of inclusivity and diversity, but on the whole, it's white, Black, East Asian, South Asian, and everybody just seems to be separate to each other. They're not actually together.
I think it definitely depends on where you live. So I'm born and raised in Chicago. I moved to Georgia for 10 years, moved back home for 6 years, and now I'm back in Georgia. And I see a huge difference. Where I live at in Georgia is about 20 minutes north of Atlanta. So I'm in the suburbs, and I am in a place now where there's a lot of Filipinos and Vietnamese people from India and Pakistan, and a lot of like Dominicans and stuff like that. But it's like we all live in this apartment complex that has like 20 buildings or whatever, but nobody like interacts with each other. Whereas in Chicago, I lived on the north side, which tends to be racially segregated, but also more diverse than the south. South side is mostly like, you have Chinatown, you have areas that are very Black, you have that. And the north side is a little bit more mixed up for whatever reason. A lot of immigrants are placed on the north side of Chicago. And so in Chicago, like, I would go to a coffee shop and I would hear 10 different languages, and I would sit at a table, where there was mixed seating, and we would all just talk to each other, right? And I didn't know these people, but we all spoke different languages. We all had different backgrounds. We'd talk, then somebody would order a platter of cookies and we'd all share them, and, whatever, that never happens here. So I do think it matters where you are. it's the culture of, I think the South, just the history in the South of the US tends to be much different. It doesn't really allow for that integration and that really merging of cultures and merging of people.
Yeah, which is a shame, because actually, I think I'm quite spoilt in that the city that I come from in the UK, it is probably one of the most multiculturally diverse cities in the whole of the UK, and we're very lucky. And like the school I went to, it was actually, there wasn't a, well, no, I lie. There was only one Chinese guy in the year, and it's only now that we realise that there was only one, but we didn't really. It's like none of us really cared. And it's like, the school I went to was so ethnically diverse. It was amazing. And this is, I don't know whether you guys call it high school. It's when you go from the age 11 to 16, which we call it secondary school. But we're not, secondary school, it was such an ethnically diverse school. And everybody got on. So when you had your groups of friends, you didn't just see, white people hanging out together, the Indians hanging out together, the blacks hanging out together. In fact, every single group of friends had a real diverse mix.
Yeah.
And I've not seen that, I hadn't seen that before, and I've not seen that after.
I think you're right. I think that like even in Chicago, I had acquaintances that were other races, but most of my closest friends were Black. And when I would go to parties, like at somebody's house, it would always be a mix of people. But most people tend to stick with their own race as far as their most intimate friendships. And I don't know why that is. Because
sorry, forgive me, I'm talking over you, but could it be down to what you said, is that people are just tired of explaining? Like, we've got this culture where, as a person of color, you're potentially being told, oh, you're being very aggressive, or you're living under this stereotype of angry Black woman or timid Indian woman or meek Chinese or Asian, East Asian. And then you've got these all new terms coming out, sort of like, we're talking white privilege, that a lot of white people are being called colonizers, they're being blamed for what their ancestors did. And therefore it's that whole thing where, could it be that people are just too afraid to mix because one might say the wrong thing to the other who'll get offended, and then say the wrong thing to the other who'll get offended, and it could just end up being like an explosion of offense between the groups? So what can we do to start overcoming this? What can we do to actually start building bridges so that it's not offensive to ask questions when you may not have the right knowledge, you may be ignorant of certain facts? Is it really wrong to ask, say, an Indian woman, why do you wear the red dot on your forehead? Or a Black woman, why do you have braids? Are these questions really offensive, and should we as ethnic minorities be taking offense to somebody wanting to know more about our culture?
So I think it's about the intent behind the question. So if I ask you, why do you wear the red dot on your forehead when you wear a sari? That's just a question. It's clear that I'm just curious and I want to know more. If I say, why do Hindus always wear those red dots on their head?
Yeah,
that's different, right? So you're going to take that differently. It's also like if a white woman asks, hey, why is your hair always like long one day, short the neck, braids, and as opposed to her just grabbing my hair and touching it, oh my God, I love your hair, right? There's a difference in there. So I think we have to be, one, in order for us to make a difference, we have to be okay with offending people and being offended, because we can't have a conversation with people who are different than us without fucking stuff up sometimes. It's going to happen. Right. And we have to be okay being pissed off. But then you have to come back and say, you know what? Like, we're all learning. I don't know a lot about white culture. I didn't grow up in a white household. I don't know why they do the shit they do. And they don't know why we do the shit we do. We just don't know. Unless you are immersed in someone's house and they're your best friend growing up and you're over there every other weekend, you're not going to understand. And the only way you can understand is by asking questions. And sometimes people have biases they don't even realize. Sometimes the things they say, the things they do might be problematic and they don't realize it. And if they don't have anybody who is part of that culture that they can ask, like, hey, I said, I like your Pocahontas braids and my friend got really mad. What did I do wrong? Why was she upset? Right? If you can't ask somebody that, you're never going to know what was wrong with that statement. You're never going to know what you need to do to change. So I think we all have to be okay with stepping out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, and mindful about what we say. I mean, I did see something. I saw an internet post recently, and it was a white guy that said, "Yeah, you know, my girlfriend left me for an Indian man, but that's okay because I heard they worship cows." Now that is actually, it's said in tongue in cheek. He said it was a joke, but actually, that's actually quite.
It's quite offensive, and it's not funny.
It's really insulting because, you know, it's like, it's not that. So Nabina said, it depends on how you ask the question. Often I offer the information up front. Yeah, Bina, I think, you know, that is the way. So I think a lot of people do that if they're aware that, you know, there is going to be a level of ignorance around. But it's just like you said, it's just understanding that. I mean, I've had somebody saying to me, "Oh, is that a bullseye on your forehead?" When if I've been, you know, had a picture of me with that red, and it's like, it's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Or, you know, somebody else saying, "Oh, do you eat curry for every single meal? Do you have curry for breakfast?" That's just ignorance. That's just.
Somebody once asked me if I ever washed my hair, and I'm like, why the fuck would I not wash it? Am I a nomad? Like, why would I not? I have access to running water. Why would I not wash my hair ever in my entire life of existence?
The question back,
don't know.
No, well, the question back would be, do you ever brush your teeth? Do you ever actually take a shower? You know, so we can get just as offensive if we want to, but we don't, because maybe it's because we are migrants or immigrants, you know, into another country. So we've been taught to be polite to our host country, you know, to the people of our host countries.
And just in general too, women of color are taught to be polite and to be more subservient and to be more to go out of ourselves to make others feel comfortable. We are taught that. That's ingrained in our DNA. So I think it's a constant battle of wanting to, you know, be a good woman versus wanting to be true to yourself and wanting to speak up for yourself and stand up for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, what I can say is, since leaving the corporate world last year, I very much like you. I feel like I can breathe because my social media is mine. What I say are my words. My opinions are my words. They're not reflective of anything else, but I can actually say what the fuck I want when the fuck I want to. And I don't have to worry about having some corporate HR person calling me into the office or ringing me up saying, right, we're going to give you a disciplinary because you said the word fuck on social media. You know, because there's sometimes it's a bit too restrictive. But I think also going into self-employment like we have done, or setting up on our own and actually having, you know, having platforms like the Double 15 Minutes, Chooch on the Loose and Soul Collective, we're actually able to, and, you know, please tell me if you disagree with this, but I think, you know, we're able to have a platform that actually can help broaden people's minds and actually give them information to maybe sort of like move them out of ignorance into a bit more knowledge.
Yeah, I think so. And I think also for anybody that's listening, that's like, oh, that's so easy for you to say because maybe you worked in a high-paying job or whatever. I was a social worker. I made $65,000 a year tops. I'm a single parent. And it's not always about, you're not always going to quit your corporate job and just like have an easy life. Like, it has been hard as fuck for me for the past year and a half. I've been broke. I've been on food stamps. There's been months where I made $200 and did DoorDash to make ends meet. But it's about doing what makes you feel happy. So I was happier doing food delivery than working a 9 to 5. And even now I'm considering getting a part-time job somewhere, but I'm only going to work somewhere that wouldn't make me want to like jump into a lake, right? Like I interviewed for coffee shops or interviewed at restaurants. Those are things that I would enjoy doing much, much, much more than working as a social worker. And so it's really about finding your balance of joy and then making it work for you. It may not be realistic for you to quit corporate America full time, but maybe you can come down to part-time or come down to 3/4 of the time and then figure out what makes you happy and then start working towards that, because there's no race, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You don't have to do what we did. It's just about being happy and finding how you can make that happen for yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I completely agree with you, because actually going self-employed is not an easy route to take.
It's not for everyone. That's okay.
And it isn't for everyone. And there are people who may want to stay in their corporate job. So this isn't about, go self-employed, quit your job. This is about finding, like you said, finding that balance within you and finding a place. Now, since quitting my job, do I have a regular paycheck? No. Am I happy? Absolutely. I'm doing a contract at the moment where I'm working with the NHS, supporting frontline workers with fitting their FFP3 masks. For me, I'm actually doing something. Am I doing the all singing, all dancing job I was doing previously? Am I doing all the strategic management consultancy stuff? Not at the moment, no, but that's okay, because what I am doing is actually really, really important in this pandemic that we're living in at the moment. I'm helping to safeguard our frontline workers to ensure they've got the right mask that's going to keep them safe, that is going to keep them COVID free. And so, self-employment isn't just about, I've set up a company and I'm a CEO and I founded this and I founded that.
I'm working on the beach. No. Yeah. You're not be able to pay your rent, and so you have to do what works for you. And what you're doing is really important. And sometimes the simpler things are the things that make us happy. And that is okay. That is really okay. It's okay to have a master's or a PhD and be like, you know what, fuck this shit. I want to work at a coffee shop. That is fine. That does not determine your worth or your intelligence. It just means that you figured out what really makes you happy and you were brave enough to go for it. That's all that means.
Absolutely. So, okay. So you talked about sort of like determining your worth. So what in your opinion, when you're working with people that are looking to sort of like release traumas and to release themselves from sort of like the chains that bind them, how do they find their worth? What defines your worth?
I think it's really important for us to remember that just being alive, just sitting here breathing, means you're worthy, right? And so a lot of us, especially people that are Black or people of color, whatever term you want to use, we tend to equate our worth with how much we accomplish. Like, okay, I have to go to college, I have to have a PhD, I have to professional, I have to have these perfect kids, I have to have a house by the time I'm 30 years old and all this stuff, right? And that's fine. But even if you just graduate high school and go work at a store and you're living a good life and you have a good heart, you are successful, you are worthy. You don't deserve any less respect than somebody who has a PhD in physics. So I think that we have to take back the idea of worth and know that it's not based to our productivity. It's not based to what we accomplish in the, in the terms of our society. It's just based on what you want it to be. Productivity is such a stupid word. Like if I wake up in the morning and I'm tired, really, really tired, and I sleep all day and I have a snack and I go back and I sleep because I'm still tired, I'm honoring my body. I'm keeping my body alive by breathing. I'm resting. You think that's not hard fucking work? That's a lot of shit you did. You kept yourself alive for 24 hours. That is productivity. That is success that day. Sometimes it might be all you have in you, and that's okay. And so we have to redefine the idea of worth and remember that it's not equated to anything outside of ourselves. It's only equated to loving ourselves, loving other people, being kind, having a good heart, having a good spirit, and just every day working to being the best version of yourself that may be.
Yeah, 100%. Now, so because we've gone a little bit over the half hour, but tell me a little bit more about the Soul Collective. What is that about?
So it's really about helping women to learn to love themselves through any type of trauma. I mean, I'm sure that there are some men too that may, be inspired. But it's really my goal is to help women because I'm a woman and I know what kind of things I've experienced and what kind of help, what kind of supports and love I needed that I didn't have, both self-love and love from others and support from others. So that's my main goal, is helping women to realize how powerful they are, how strong they are, working through any type of trauma that they may have experienced, because that trauma really shapes the way we talk to ourselves. And so helping women learn how to little by little shift those voices to believe in themselves more, because we can't really be our truest, best, most enlightened self if we don't love ourselves, or if we're constantly letting people walk all over us. So that's my main goal. And then of course, incorporating the physical aspects and spiritual aspects of yoga and meditation and mindfulness, because those are things that we really can pass down to our siblings or even our parents. My mom went to her first yoga class with me when she was in town last month, and it was life-changing for her. Now she made up some pose called Crouching Tiger, which isn't a thing, but whatever. But she,
it is now. If mama says it is, it is.
Time, like sitting down and like just shutting the fuck up for an hour and moving her body and seeing how it feels. Like her first time in her life, she's 53, 54. So that was life. My mom has been through a lot of shit, you know, been through a lot of shit together. And that was life-changing for her. She felt completely different. So that part to me is really important, helping women find those things that change their life and helping them have that shift to believe in themselves. Because when we heal ourselves, we're actually healing 7 generations after us. You know, whether we have children or not, we pass it on to our nieces and nephews or our siblings or our cousins or whatever. You know, it's a lineage that we can break. We don't have to have a cycle of self-hate and self-loathe. We can change the cycle and pass on a legacy of self-love and self-determination.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that goes without saying. So Sonia, if people want to get hold of you, if they want to work with you, how do they get hold of you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so they can find me. So my website is thesoulcollective.org. Soul is spelled SOL. And so they can find me there. And then my social medias are soulcollective.the SOL. And then Chooch on the Loose is my personal one. I haven't posted anything on business social media in months just because I'm kind of revamping everything. Since I don't want to do the individual coaching anymore, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next and how I'm going to incorporate food, yoga, you know, group coaching, for how I'm going to incorporate all those things. And so there's no point in talking about posting stuff on social media if I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do next. So, but they can follow me on either of those accounts. Chooch on the Loose is my personal account. And that's where it's more stuff about my personal life, my son, mostly food, basically. I just eat all day and cook food and put pictures of food.
Food is amazing.
And selfies and, you know, plants, you know, stuff, regular stuff.
But like I said, because I've got a couple of colleagues of mine, and every time we talk of friends, every time we talk, it always ends up about food. Like I lived in Italy for a year and a half, and my conversations with all of my friends in Sardinia. So we had Elenia joining us from Sardinia. So thank you for joining us, Elenia. But it's like, you know, our conversations would always revolve around food. Food is important. It brings people together.
Yeah, it's nurturing. It's loving.
Yeah, and it feeds your soul. And I think, you know, I think we come from cultures where food is the central part of every family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, you may not have like the best looking house and the best whatever, but do you know what? Your table is a feast and a half at all times.
Yeah, and that's where the love is.
Yeah. Oh God, completely. I mean, that's what I've always been taught, that actually food is love. You give, you know, that's how we show love, is with food. Sonia, have you got any last messages for our audience or people who are watching before we sign off for the night?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody, you know, just do what works for you. You know, my path might not be your path. Rupa's path might not be your path. Your best friend's path might not be your path. And that's okay. You have to just look inside yourself and figure out what the best thing for you is, because happiness is an inside job. Nobody else can make you happy. Nobody else can help you be happy. You got to do that for yourself. And as long as you're being true to yourself, you are successful.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sonia. It's
Thank
been
you so much.
A wonderful conversation with you. And I'm sure we will have a few more conversations on the double 15 minutes because, you know, I think you've a wealth of knowledge and you've got so much to share. So, yeah, you know, watch out. Sonia will be back on the show, hopefully in a few months' time.
Yes,
but, just to say, Sabina's just said, well done, ladies. We've had a few other people. So we've had Mangesh Murudkar joining us. Hi, Mangesh. Hope you're well. I'm not sure who's joined us from LinkedIn, but, you know, those of you watching on LinkedIn and YouTube, thank you for joining us. And for those that are watching live on Facebook, to say that this is the last show of August. I will be back in September because, you know, we have changed the double 15 minutes to a fortnightly show. So the next Monday falls on bank holiday weekend, August bank holiday weekend. So we have like a few bank holidays in the UK, which is great. But I won't be doing a show then. So I will be back on the 6th of September with another amazing guest that we'll be talking to, and I will share more about that in the next week or so. But for now, Sonia, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. This was lovely.
Yeah, no, it's always a pleasure talking to you. So thank you, and thank you all for watching, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.